yourself, so I know.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to today's webinar titled The Basics of Resume Building. I'm Dave Cohen here at the Georgia State University Alumni Association Alumni Center on the downtown campus. Today we partner with University Career Services to present what we hope will be helpful and valuable information as you look for employment or look to transition into another field. Our guest presenter today from University Career Services is Shannon Shelton. Shannon is a GSU graduate with a Master's of Science in Clinical Counseling and a Master of Arts in Cultural Studies. She also holds the National Certified Counselor and Certified Rehabilitation Counselor credentials. Her career focuses on career and vocational counseling and mental health wellness, coupled with her professional background in academic advisement and training and development. Shannon is a member of the Licensed Professional Counselors Association and the American Counseling Association as well. Shannon is an advocate for diversity and inclusion and considers it an honor to be working with students and alumni as a career counselor at Georgia State University. Again, our topic today is the basics of resume building. And right now, our special guest speaker again from University Career Services at Georgia State University, Shannon Shelton. Shannon?
All right, I'm going to get this presentation started. All right, good afternoon. I want to thank Dave and Alumni Relations for having me here today for this session. As he stated, I'm a proud GSU alumni, go Panthers, and I'm happy for the opportunity to connect with other alums. Dave is going to be monitoring the chat and Q&A, so please just submit your questions along the way and we'll get to those questions at the end of the presentation. Today, I will present a basic overview of how to build a resume from scratch from beginning to end, so let's get started. So what is it? What exactly is a resume? A resume is a personalized document created and used to present your background, skills, and accomplishments. It is a summary of your work experiences, your skills and abilities, your accomplishment. It shows your knowledge, education, and training. It is often your first introduction to a potential employer or other contact toward employment. So it represents you and your related employment history up to this point. It's always important to go over the competencies that employers are looking for in recent graduates. So we look to the National Association of Colleges and Employers. They publish a list of the top career competencies that are deemed essential in the graduates that they are looking to hire. For those of you who are recent graduates, these are the qualities employers are seeking out in candidates. So if you have some of these competencies, you will want to highlight them in your resume, and we are going to go over a few of those. Problem-solving skills, very important, very easy to highlight in your resume. Accomplishment, especially if you can show that you've been building various different types of accomplishments within your position. Strategic thinking, also very critical and translatable skills. And communication skills, which are key in almost all positions. Leadership skills. Many employers are looking, even if you're not applying for a management role or an advisory role, leadership skills are transferable across all occupations, so they want you to be a leader even within your own particular role. There are multiple reasons to create a solid resume. Mainly, it is a marketing document for you. This is where you will summarize your work and educational history and your experience. You will utilize your resume whenever you're applying for a job or when you're asking someone to provide a reference or an introduction for you. A resume is also very important for networking. When making an introduction of yourself for an informational interview, you will want a solid resume to attach to emails or other correspondence. And also, most graduate school applications now require a resume. So it's just very important to have a good resume as a foundation. Okay, so the resume format. As I mentioned, I want to lay out a simple and effective format for you, a resume, building a resume from scratch. So let's start out by talking about your contact information. It should be front and center in your resume. Your name should be the largest font, usually somewhere between 14 and 20-point font. Your current and permanent address should be listed. Although now it is customary for applicants to just use their city and state, so you can leave off a street address and zip code for privacy. Professional email. I know some of you may be very recent graduates, so if you're still using your GSU email, you may want to consider, that you're going to eventually lose your school account. So make sure you secure an email address that is professional and appropriate. And most importantly, make sure you check this email account on a daily basis. Also, in your name and contact info, you can put a direct link to your LinkedIn profile, or you can put any other online professional site. If you have a portfolio that's online, this would be the place to put that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the headers. And the headers are important because they are what organizes the information in your resume so that your reader knows where to look. The first header that we're going to talk about here is education. We called this one Education and Honors. So in this one, you want to make sure that you spell out your degree. So for instance, if you have, like this particular person, a Bachelor of Arts in Marketing, you don't want to put BA Marketing. You want to be formal. You want to spell that out. This is also a place where you can list your graduation date, but if your GPA is a 3.5 or higher, you probably will want to go ahead and list your GPA, especially if you are a recent grad. Also, this is the place where you can list any awards or honors that you have. So if you were frequently on the dean's list or the president's list, or you were a scholarship recipient and you're a recent graduate, you may want to put that here in this section as well. All right, the next header up here is work experience. This is a very important one. You want to list your work experience in reverse chronological order. So what that means is that you want your most recent employment first, and then have them go in reverse chronological order after that. You always want to include the full employer's name, the dates that you were employed there, what your title was while you were there, and what the location of the company is. As you can see on this resume, all of the dates are on the right side. That makes it very easy for the employer to know where to look for the dates. So if you can get all the dates on the right side, that just also gives a lot of balance, a visual balance to your resume, and makes it a lot easier to read. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about bullet points. We actually will spend a couple of slides on your bullet points. But the bullet points are going to be listed underneath each of your work experiences. So you want to make sure you begin your bullet points with action verbs that describe initiative and movement on your part. So you want to use verbs such as coordinated, managed, planned, supervised, trained. You want to make sure that it highlights skills and responsibilities. And also, you have to tailor your resume to each job description that you're applying for. Use keywords in the job description within your resume, especially if you have that experience. So you want to make sure You tailor each resume to the job description. And yes, that does mean that you will have multiple versions of your resume. I know that's not what you want to hear, but it's really just something that you may have to come to grips with. Also, lastly here, you want to quantify information when possible. So if you were able, like for instance, this particular candidate drew in over 2,000 participants, or increased marketing to over 25,000 subscribers. So if you have numbers or other quantifying information, you want to use that also in your bullet points. All right, so in addition to full-time work, just a bit more about work experience. Your resume can also include other items as experience. This can be helpful if you haven't had a full-time job before, or if you've only worked part-time and you feel like your work experience section is pretty thin. You can also include internships under your work experience. If you've done significant tasks in community service, you can list your community service under experience. If you've held roles or had responsibilities within a student organization, you can list that under experience. You can also list relevant coursework. I wouldn't necessarily put that under work experience, but relevant coursework could go underneath your educational experience. But there are other ways to list academic experience if you wanted to do a section on academic experience and list some projects. Again, this is only if you don't have any work experience. This is a way in order to add some breadth to your experience section. Now, this section we're calling leadership experience. This section can be very important if you don't have a lot of professional work experience. If you've been active in professional organizations, you can see here how we could list that. You can list any clubs or organizations, and just list it just as you would, a job. So list the role that you had, list the dates that you were there, and list the bullet points with your action verbs. As you get to the end of the resume with your leadership experience and you haven't had a lot of full-time work experience, you probably want to make sure you keep your resume to one page if possible. This makes it easier for your employer to navigate your resume. You don't want to put a lot of fluff in the resume. You want them to read only the things that are most relevant to what they're asking for in the job description. You see there's also a section below the one that's highlighted here called volunteer experience. So you can also use volunteer experience, to add breadth to your resume. You can list positions, or you can just list dates that you've done volunteer experience. So leadership experience and volunteer experience, these last two headers are not fixed headers. You may choose to substitute the volunteer section, for instance, for a section on technical skills. You might want that to be your last section on the resume, especially if you're in the IT field. Another section you could have at the end, instead of volunteer or leadership experience, if you wanted to have a section called professional development and training or professional affiliations. Sometimes those sections can be important depending upon what field you're in. So again, there's a little bit of flexibility with these last two sections on your resume. So as I promised, we are going to revisit the topic of bullet points for a moment because they are that important, especially in the work experience section. As I already stated, you want to begin each of your bullet points with an action verb, and you want each of your bullet points to be concise, clear, truthful, and comprehensive. So you want to make sure you tell your reader what you did in the fewest words possible. So you really want to pack in really good content in a short amount of space. Because remember, we're trying to keep this resume to one page if we can. You want to use language that's meaningful to the reader. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later, but using language that is specific to that company. That's language that you might see in that job description. If that language can be applied to any of your jobs, use language that's meaningful to them. Focus on accomplishments that you've had. Don't just list that, your job duties. If possible, use the numbers, as I mentioned, a quantified result. Avoid pronouns, so avoid referring to yourself. Just list what you did. Start it out with an action verb. And remember your audience. Again, that goes back to using language that's meaningful to the reader. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. Just because I've mentioned action verbs, 5 times already, I just wanted to show you a list of what I mean by that. You want to show accomplishment and action when you start off your bullet points. For instance, you don't want to use a verb, worked or finished. You want to use action verbs like managed, motivated, organized, trained, conducted, coordinated. So these action verbs really will give your reader more of a sense of what you did and how you did it. Developing effective bullet points is important. Some examples of how to improve your bullet points within the experience section. I've listed a couple of examples up here. Don't just list what your responsibilities were. You want to show what you accomplished there. For instance, it's really great if you are the president of your professional organization. But maybe tell them what you did while you were president of a professional organization. Maybe you want to say you instituted a new procedure that streamlined meetings. Maybe you increased membership by a certain percentage. So just make sure you indicate accomplishment whenever you can. And whenever possible in your resume and in your bullet points, use industry-specific words. This is part of tailoring your resume to the types of jobs you want and to the job description that you're applying for. So using industry-specific language helps you be more explicit and clear. You guys know some of this language because you are in your chosen field. But also pull keywords from that job description and put them directly into your resume if they fit with your experience. Here in this box, you'll see a few examples of industry-specific language in the counseling profession, for instance. So we use words like counsel, advise, mediate, problem solve, monitor, educate. So just be mindful of industry-specific language. Again, you know it better than I do. You know your chosen field, but also pull it from that job description. I can't say that enough. Another important note, and we'll talk about this on the next slide as well, I wanted to introduce applicant tracking systems. You may already know these ATS systems, but these are software applications that handle the recruitment process for large corporations and some small ones. And they often are the first pass-through for sorting through resumes to determine which ones are the best fit for positions. So these ATS systems are going to be looking for keywords and other relevant terminology when they're reviewing resumes. So more information here. This is the software system right here. Here are some tips. You don't want to use fancy fonts and you don't want to use fancy templates, pictures or graphics. These are all going to throw off the applicant tracking systems. Be careful of using highlight, shading, symbols other than bullet points. So don't put a lot of fancy symbols. Don't put any kind of, formatting and other kinds of programming within your resume. If it can't read it for some reason, the ATS may scramble it, and sometimes it will actually just put your resume to the side. So you want to just play it safe, use a traditional Microsoft Word document, use traditional fonts. The keywords, as I've mentioned, are the key to getting you through the ATS system. And when a company asks you to upload your resume, and make sure that if they ask you to load it in a certain compatible file type, just make sure you comply with that. So we've talked a lot about what to include on your resume, but here are some items that you should leave off. Don't put a photograph on your resume. Don't put any high school information. Don't put your work experience in paragraphs. We've talked a lot about bullet points for a reason. Employers, recruiters do not want to read paragraphs. They want to read sound bites. While your hobbies and interests are important and they might ask you about it in the interview, don't put it on your resume. Don't start mentioning salary. Certainly don't lie. Only put truthful information on your resume, and don't use valuable resume real estate to list your references. If they want references, they will ask for them. Also, leave out any personal information. If you have to fill out an application, it may ask you for some of this personal information, but do not include it on your resume. It's also important to note what employers and recruiters deem as deal breakers when they're reviewing resumes. Guys, this is no joke. No typos, no spelling errors, no poor grammar. It's just completely unacceptable. You can't do it. Run the spell check, and when you think your resume is ready to go, run the spell check one more time. Get someone else to take a look at your resume. Dave Cohen runs resume reviews, so utilize that service. Get some help with your resume if you need it. Don't be too duty oriented. You don't want you don't want it to read like a job description. You want your resume to show your accomplishments. You have to include dates. So they don't want to figure out how long you've been at a job. They want to be able to look at it and say, okay, she was there for 6 months, or okay, they were there for a year. Also, your contact information. It needs to be front and center. I think I mentioned it needs to be the first thing that they see on that resume when they pick it up. And they also need to be able to know where they can look and find your email address or your phone number if they want to call you quickly. You want that contact information to be visible. Also, don't put any crazy formatting in there. No templates, no boxes, no tables, no headers and footers. Just keep it simple. While we're not going to go into detail about this today, I can't discuss the resume without noting a cover letter. It's like salt and pepper. They go together. It's also important when you are applying for a job. It should accompany almost every resume that you send. Just quickly here, a cover letter, it gives you more room to explain your interests, qualifications, and skills. It gives you a chance to prove your knowledge of the industry. While your resume is a long list, a page-long list, your cover letter gets to be a personable touch. And many people don't send cover letters, so it's your chance to set yourself apart in a positive way. All right, just to sum it up, here's some takeaways for your resume. 1 page if possible. If you've been in the workforce for a significant period of time and you've had several full-time jobs, 1 page is negotiable. But if you are right out of college and maybe you're just in your first full-time job, try to keep it to 1 page. Make sure that your resume is clean, consistent, and concise. You want it to be easy to read for your employer. You don't want them to feel like exhausted when they pick up your resume and look at it. You want them to feel like they know where to look for the information that they're seeking about you as a candidate. Put the dates on the far right. Employers like to know, hey, I can find all my dates in one place. And remember, this is kind of depressing, but it's true. Employers really only spend about 30 seconds looking at a resume. They're going to look at some of the key things and decide if they want to talk to you further. Again, tailor your resume to the job description. I know I sound like a broken record, but there it is. Use keywords when possible. Quantify your accomplishments when possible, and use your words wisely. Again, like I said, your resume is valuable real estate. So it's you on paper. So decide what's most important to put down, and then that's where you want to put it. University Career Services offers Georgia State alumni who have graduated within the last year, complimentary access to our services and resources through Alumni Career Services. So this is good news. I'm just going to list them all up here. Okay, so if you guys are interested in working further with University Career Services, the services that we offer within a 1-year grace period focus on job search preparation and career counseling. So for new graduates, we offer this 1-year job search prep and career counseling. But the good news is, in response to COVID-19, we are extending that service to alums who graduated over a year ago. That will probably be ending soon as COVID-19 gets under control, but right now that service is still offered. All alumni, regardless of graduation year, are welcome to attend any career event sponsored by our office, and will occasionally receive communication about on-campus events. If you're interested in the Alumni Career Services annual membership I think it's $70. I don't know that it's going to go up this year, but that's what it's been. But that gives you access to Handshake, which is University Career Services online job board. It gives you an annual 4 career counseling appointments within a 12-month period. So those career counseling appointments can include career assessment, job search planning, grad school prep, any career counseling, access to all of our career events and campus interviews, and all of the services that we offer. So all of our services at UCS right now are virtual at this time. And all of our services require you guys to complete the Alumni Career Services inquiry form that's located on the website listed above. That website is career.gsu.edu/alumni. So you guys can go and check that out. And at this time, I will be happy to take any questions that you might have.
Okay, Shannon, I'm back. Great job in your presentation today. Very key information, valuable information that will hopefully be helpful to any alumni or any students that were tuning in today. If anybody does have any questions, they can submit those on the site in which they registered, or they can submit them using the chat on the screen. If anybody has a question, we'll give them a minute to submit that.
Sure.
I think a couple of the key takeaways, and I see this as we, offer our, prior to the virus, it was in-person resume reviews at the various Georgia State campuses and locations around town. And then in the virtual world, we offer our virtual free resume reviews on a weekly basis. But you see some that come in, and you mentioned to try to keep it to 1 page. You see some that come in that are sometimes 2 and sometimes 3, and they're putting a lot of information on there, covering their entire career. And depending upon the person's age, that could go back a number of years.
Yeah.
So, and then the other key thing that it looked like was a good takeaway is when the resume reviews are inserted into the computer, looking for keywords. And you went over all those keywords. I think those were 2 key points with regards to the takeaway, and especially for some of the younger members of our audience who are early in their job search and early in their careers, to know how the process works.
Yes, I think it's tempting sometimes to have your resume be fancy, and overly formatted. But really, it can work against you when you have all of that formatting in there. It can really throw off the applicant tracking system. So, yeah, that's one thing I see a lot with our graduating seniors and alums who visit our office. Just one caveat to that, Dave, is that there are some professions that are slightly more creative. And they do allow a little more leeway with the resume, to be a little bit more creative with the format. And I think that's more the exception than the rule. But in case there are questions out there about, someone who wants to be a creative director somewhere, or some kind of a visual editor, the job description may ask for, a more of a creative resume. And of course, in that instance, you would follow that request.
Shannon, we did get a question that came in and it asks, please tell us more about Handshake.
Sure. Handshake is our one-stop shop in University Career Services. It's gsu.handshake.com. And Handshake is the place where you go to sign up for career counseling appointments. It is also where all of our events are listed. So you can go there and search for all of our events. It's also a database of jobs. Over 10,000 jobs are active in Handshake right now. So Handshake is a really important resource for our office, and we use it for absolutely everything.
Another question that has come in, is it okay to omit a previous employer under your work experience when listing previous jobs if the job is not relevant to the job that you're applying for?
That's a great question. And I would say that it's kind of an individualized question. I mean, if you want to show continuity of work, you can list that job, but maybe only put 1 or 2 bullet points under it. If the job is completely irrelevant and maybe you were only there for a couple of weeks and you don't want to talk about it in an interview, you can omit it. But if the job isn't relevant, but you want to show that you were working and you were consistent, you can show that job, but just minimize it to 1 or 2 bullet points.
All right, another question, and you mentioned this at the tail end of your presentation with regards to alumni getting that first year free, and then thereafter, you said you think it's $70 or $75. The question is, if someone is interested in that option beyond the year, the free year, does it start from that date at which you pay, or is it based on a calendar year or an academic year?
No, basically it starts when you want it to, and then it runs for 12 months after that.
Okay, that was easy enough. Well, Shannon, great job on the presentation. Very informal, and hopefully a lot of our folks that are tuning in found it to be valuable and helpful in their job search. And we'll look forward to connecting with you again and hopefully presenting another topic of interest to our Georgia State alumni and students.
Yes, great. No, it was my pleasure to be here. I'm always happy to reach out to alums. As I said, I'm a proud graduate, proud Panther, so I'm always happy to chip in whenever I can help. So thanks for having me, Dave.
All right, again, I want to thank you for joining us this afternoon. Also, again, thanks to Shannon Shelton, our guest speaker from Georgia State University's University Career Services. Quick reminder, please visit the Alumni Association online at pantheralumni.com for a complete listing of our upcoming events. You've also seen scrolling at the bottom of the screen if you're interested in scheduling an appointment for our virtual free resume review, which we offer various appointment times throughout the week. You can contact me at dcohen@gsu.edu. We want to thank Ellen Kinsey for her technical support. And again, thanks to Shannon Shelton from University Career Services. I'm Dave Cohen from the Alumni Association at Georgia State. We hope you found this to be a very helpful and informational webinar. And if you would like to view it again, it will be available on the Georgia State Alumni Association Facebook page. I'm Dave Cohen. Thanks for watching.